Hello and a very warm welcome back. You're listening to Widowed AF. You're here with me. I'm your host. I'm Rosie Moss. Now, each episode I bring you a tale from the forefront of widowhood. And sometimes I get people joining me from all over the world, and today's guest is no exception. I am delighted to welcome the beautifully named Betsy Ronel to the podcast. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you, Rosie. I'm smiling because I love you so much.
Through there, and I almost brought out whistles and things. We've been looking forward to this, haven't we, for quite some time?
Yes.
So, Betsy, yeah, you've got your own podcast, and you very kindly invited me on, and we had the most amazing chat. Just tell the listeners the name of your podcast so they can find you as well.
Yes, thank you, Rosie. And we did. My podcast is called Heavens to Betsy, and it's anywhere you can find podcasts, Spotify, etc. So thank you for that. Yes, we did have a wonderful chat. We got a really good response, and I look forward to continuing our conversation on Heavens to Betsy again, because widowhood is forever.
It's an ongoing thing, right? It's an ongoing thing. Now, if you could just listen to this episode before you go and search for Betsy, so please, that would be helpful.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, do that.
So, Betsy, we are both a member of this club that nobody asks to join. You've been a fully paid up member a little longer than I have. Your husband died in 2011. That's right, hey?
Correct. Yeah? Fully paid up.
Member.
In fact, they owe me money. Yeah.
Yes.
The Widow Sisterhood owes me something. 15 years. In February, it'll be 15 years.
15 years. Gosh.
It's kind of like, I mean, I have not had cancer, and I don't mean to equate this in a superficial way, but I know women who have overcome cancer, and they're like, yep, 15 years out. That's how I feel from my trauma. I'm 15 years out, and I'm proud because I've lasted this long, and I intend to keep going. And it's also like, my God, like, who wants to come out of anything like that?
And how do you find that kind of identity as a widow 15 years in? Because I found when I was first widowed, I almost kind of wanted to rattle through and be further in, so people took me more seriously as a widow, Whereas now I'm thinking, the further I get away from that date, do I become less valid? What happens?
That's a really, really interesting and excellent question. I agree. No, I think we become more professional as widows. We're more professed in this miserable, title we have. First of all, I hate the word widow. It's a hideous word to me. It just means nothing good. And I think if you do widowhood well over time, because you and I both have fallen on our faces many times, so it's not like but I wanted to hurry up and get further along to just move through this, thinking there was going to be an end to it, and there isn't. But I think we do it better as the longer we're in it, because we fall on our faces. And not to say we won't fall on our faces for the rest of our lives, because this is a journey none of us asked for. So I think it's a very organic journey, but I think we get better at dealing with it. Whatever.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us find that we have this sort of superhuman strength that comes from it, and we want to do something that we didn't used to do in our lives before.
Yes.
Hence the podcast, right?
Correct. Sharing. It makes me want to share, because you and I have really seen the depths that we can go to emotionally, mentally, and we've had to get our kids through this. We've had to get ourselves through this, our family and friends through it too, who needed that help. And I think when you go through something like this, that's why I liken it to cancer, because that is just as terrifying and awful can be as this. So people who have come through cancer, people who have come through sudden death and grief, we are superhuman. Right? We really are. I mean, good Lord.
So, as is tradition on the podcast, let me ask you, do you want me to ask you that again?
Yeah, but no, I'm fine. I don't care.
So, as is tradition with the podcast, I'm going to ask you now just to tell me a little bit about you and Daniel, how you met, what your life was like before the tragedy happened, and then I'll navigate you through there.
So we met in 1999. We were supposed to party like 1999, like Prince said, and I had just gotten out of a very long on and off, too long relationship, and we ended that. And then literally about 6 weeks later, my friends dared me to go on something brand new back then, which was called Match.com. Brand new.
Oh, that was retro edition.
Yes. Okay. So it was not even a thing anywhere in the world at that time. New York was actually, I want to say, unofficially one of their test markets, I think. And my friends who were working in the TV world were like, there's this new thing for people like you to go on. I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, you don't date.
Like you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't date. You will die alone. So you better get out there. And I was like, I don't go to bars. Like, I'm not going to go. That just wasn't my thing. And so they're like, exactly. Get on this website. I was like, I am not putting my picture on the World Wide Web. You know, it was scary back then. It's still scary now, but
How
like,
things have changed, right?
yes, how things have changed. Our level of what we tolerate is way higher. But then I was like, what if there's a murderer on, like, who knows, whatever. Anyway, so at their urging, and my mother agreed, I went on. I put up not even a full picture. I put up like this much of a picture. Like, you can only see a quarter of my face, because who knew? And I had 3 dates. They used to give you a free week back then. I had 3 dates lined up. 2 of them had to postpone because they had work things. The third one was a doctor in residency, very reliable, and he kept the date. So I went on that date, and I was like, wow, he's so nice. He's so normal. Something's wrong.
Yeah, of course. Where's that red flag, right?
Right? I was like, this is too easy. What? You know, like, it never happens like that, or rarely. But that was it. We went on 1 date, and he was not giving up. And we got married, a little over 2 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you feel the same? Was it that in kind of instant attraction with you as well?
The attraction, he was very handsome, but that wasn't what I don't really care about the look so much. I really was picking up on his energy. There was a softness to him that I had never experienced since my own parents.
Yeah.
There was a softness. He felt like home. And I was like, well, at first I was like, is this unsexy? I'm not sure. He didn't look like my dad, which is good. My dad has like really dark hair and whatever. And my husband was like sandy blonde. So I'm like, he didn't look like him, which was a good thing. But I was like, what is this feeling of home? Is this weird, or is this what it should be? Because I didn't know. And I talked to my mother about it, and she was like, that sounds perfect. Okay, this might be a good one. So, you know, we stuck it out, and he wanted to get engaged 4 months later. I said, are you crazy? There's a lot wrong with me. No. He's like, please, I want to get engaged to you. I just know it's going to be right. I know you're nervous. Please trust me. I said, okay, we can get engaged, but we're going to have a very long engagement, because I need to give you every excuse in the book to run. He didn't take any of them. I sure gave him plenty. And then 1.5 years later, we were married. Yeah.
I've written down and circled the word home, because for a long time, and even now, I find this real pining for home, this sensation of home. I'm in my home, right? Yeah. And it took me a really long time to figure out what that was. And hearing you describe Daniel as giving you that sense of home, of course, that's what it is. That's what I'm missing. Of course it is. That's like, I don't know why I never made that connection. I think, that's crazy. And so powerful and so beautiful that you found it. And I know, the story, how the story ends, but how powerful and beautiful that you found it.
In a human. Yeah. And he really, he taught me really you receive love from your parents. It's different, parental and child love, but he taught me really what true unconditional love was. We did things according to more my timeline. He was at the forefront. He was going to become the breadwinner, and he knew that. And I was fine taking a back seat with that. And I was going to run the household and our family. But even though we did things professionally according to his timeline, we did things emotionally and personally according to my timeline. And he was able to give me that. And that for me, he was the perfect match. And that's not to say he wasn't a pain in the ass and an idiot and all the things that husbands are.
I'm the one that wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. We love them for it. But he was not perfect. I'm not putting him on a pedestal because he's dead. I still yell at him every day. And if he were here, I'd kill him for dying. But, it's a kill right now all over again. But for me, he was perfect. He was everything I needed. And then to lose that, he gave me love, security, emotional security.
Teammate, what I'm thinking as well. That idea of you being a team, that he was going to become this eminent doctor in the end, and you were going to be taking care of the home, which is a much underrated, undervalued position here, right? Yeah. I did that with Ben. And in order for these men to have these careers, often they do need somebody to run the home. And I was quite happy to do that. I loved it. I loved being a mum when they were little. Yes. And it just it was not something I ever foresaw myself doing.
Oh,
I was going to
really?
have a career. No, I don't think so. I think before I met Ben, I didn't necessarily think I was going to have kids. I don't know what I wanted to do, but there was something about him that made me perhaps maternal, or maybe it was my age, get that biological clock. I don't know.
I think it
But
was all of it. It was meant to be. That's
probably,
what it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
For me, I always wanted to be a mother and a housewife. That was what I dreamed of. My games when I was little was I was Mrs. Anderson, and I had a big old telephone, and I would call Mr. Anderson and talk to him about our imaginary kids and what I was making for dinner. I didn't want to be a scientist, an astronaut, a doctor. I didn't want to be any of that. I wanted to be a housewife and a mother.
And probably, possibly, arguably, one of the most important jobs in the world, right?
Agreed. And I had the luxury of, when we met and we decided we were, we like each other, I said, listen, we're older now. I know we're both looking to get married. I just want you to know, I don't care if we're rich or poor, but I do want to be a stay-at-home mother, especially while the children are little. It's not about the money. I want to do this job, and I want to do it I am not someone, I admire the women who can have a career and be a great parent. They're better than me. I couldn't do it. I said, I can't do two great things at once. One thing, we could live in a trailer. I do not care. I want to be in love with you, and I want to take care of the children we may have. And we agreed on that. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because people do sort of assume if you say that you were a stay-at-home mother that you must have been very affluent.
Yeah.
And, Ben and I were never terribly badly off. But don't get me wrong, when the boys were little, we had a tiny little 2-up, 2-down terraced house, no parking space. And we made the decision that I would leave my job and raise the children, because my childcare was taking at least a third of my salary plus my fuel. Exactly. And it all came to a head when one of my parents' friends said, "Oh, how are you finding being back at work, Rosie?" And I just went, "I'm not doing anything properly. Everything's going to shit." And it was. And I admire women that can do it. And at the moment, I'm juggling, the job and the children, and that in itself, even though that older, is still really tough. So, anyway, sorry, we went off on a little tangent there, didn't we, about career aspiration?
Yeah.
So you had 2 children together, 2 boys, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and Daniel went on to be quite a prominent surgeon, didn't he? Tell me a little bit about your life.
After we got married, we bought our little starter house in Westchester County, New York, the suburbs of New York City. And he was commuting, and he was in the city. He was offered an amazing opportunity to become the junior surgeon of a very senior and very successful plastic surgeon. He was a plastic surgeon in New York City, which is like every young doctor's dream. He was handed that, and not because he was a nice guy. My husband worked exceptionally hard, was exceptionally bright, and I'm not just saying this. Like I was so lucky, and he had gifted hands, which you need as a surgeon of any kind. So especially plastic, because sometimes you are dealing with the superficial outward experience. So he was very gifted, and his professors knew that. So one of his professors offered him a junior position. He was about to take it, and I said, I know this is crazy. We have one opportunity to change our lives, and then it's going to get serious. What would you think if we moved out of New York just while the children were little? We only had one. We were about to have one at the time. And I said, I'm just feeling something different. I've been born and raised here. I'm just sick of it. I don't want to raise my kids here. I know what that's like. I want something different for our kids. And he was Mr. Adventure himself before he met me. He's like, okay, great. As long as I can find a job within, a certain mileage of a hospital, great. We can move wherever you want. So we both picked a city out west in our American Southwest called Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is, to me, one of the most beautiful places in the country. And he got 2 job offers, actually. It was because this is not a place that you get. This is not like a metropolis. There's not a lot of job opportunity. Somehow, the week we started looking, he found 2 job opportunities, got both of them, chose one, and began. He was a junior surgeon out there. And so that's where we did our lives.
What scale was this? You saying, I want to leave New York, to you actually upping sticks and moving to Santa Fe. How long did this take?
It took not long. So when he agreed, he was like, yeah, let's talk about it. We talked about it with his professors. We talked about it with the surgeon that offered him the job. He's like, yeah, try it. If you don't love it, you come back. I will always want you. So no worries. So we knew New York was a lock. We knew New York was always going to be ours if we wanted it. So he said, look, yeah, I agree. You're young once. Live a little, see what you can do out there. So it was easy. I mean, the whole thing from the time we accepted the job, he graduated 6 months, maybe.
I had a feeling that it would all happen quickly.
It was
I don't
fast.
think you're a lady that messes around.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And neither was he. Like, we saw it, we took it, we were done. And he was very successful, mainly because he was so kind and he cared so deeply for his patients. He really met people where they were, tried to help them get where they wanted to go, but with the right reasons. If he had a patient come in and they said, my husband wants me to have bigger boobs, he was like, okay, what do you want? And let's talk about the marriage and let's see what's really going on here. Because the big boobs may not be the real answer here. So let's look at it. He just wouldn't operate on you because you wanted to be operated on. It was, he was
So an ethical plastic surgeon.
very, very ethical. Yes, very ethical. I mean, when you're board certified here, you're supposed to be extremely ethical. And, I would say 95% are. But he also, we were very generous. We gave a lot away because we knew our future would be bright. We just felt very good about money and that it was an energy, and you spent it, it was giving, you took it, it was getting, it was giving, it was a constant exchange. Money to us was energy. So we always knew he would be, I mean, that's what we thought. We always thought he would be successful just because he was just growing and growing. So we gave away a lot of money every single month because we had plenty for ourselves. It wasn't, we didn't need a grand life, and we had enough, and we always knew we'd have more. So we thought, let's give to those who don't. So that really sat well with people, and just more and more patients kept coming to him. It was
and what an amazing position to be in, and for both of you, actually, for him to be, so early on in his career, relatively, to be in such a position where he's effectively headhunted, right?
Correct.
And for you to watch the man that you love achieve so much in a career, a very, very competitive career, you must have been so incredibly proud of him.
Beyond. It was nothing that surprised me because I didn't know he'd be that successful that fast, but I knew he would be successful just because of who he was and how he was an artist with his hands and how he looked at medicine and people and humanity. But to rise that quickly in just barely 7 years was unreal. And it also, when you do well, it attracts a lot of jealousy and sick envy. And it was really, like, even thinking about it just turns my stomach, and it was just vile. So with everything good comes some darkness, and that's okay. We understood that. But he wasn't a man who believed, he's raised his voice, I think, 3 times in all the years I knew him. I'm a yeller. Like, I will yell at you, no problem. But he was so even and so unflappable. He was in the Air Force before I met him. So he was just very easy, confident, a peacemaker, didn't understand about jealousy and anger. But his thought was, if someone's successful in their chosen field, that's great. That means there's more business for everyone. So he was competitive within himself, but not with other people. And did you
find that with this success, friendships kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit? Did you find there were jealousies within your friendship circles?
Of course. I had the most superficial, vile bunch of friends. And I always knew that, but I was like, now, they ended up, of course, being friends with me because of my husband. And they all, because if you were friends with me, we were able to give you, if we had extra Botox or whatever, we would give it to you for free, or, give you a discount and just charge our wholesale price, things like that. And, look, there's perks to being married to a plastic surgeon. There's perks to being my friend. And so, but what was good was that I was able to see who was really my friend and who was just my friend for who we were. And so I threw those people in the trash very quickly. They were pretty vile. And then I had a very tiny group of friends, and that was much safer and much more comfortable for me. And it wasn't about what we could offer. It was about being friends with us.
Who you are. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because whether it be a kind of increase in your financial wealth or a significant decrease, you do tend to see friends. And actually, I guess the same could be said for any life event, because we know this very well as being widows, that friendships change, beyond all recognition.
Yeah.
So, Betsy, you are living your best life down in Santa Fe. You are rolling around in Botox, having the time of your life. And then, in the February of 2011, things take a very, very significant change. So if you're comfortable doing so, just tell me a little bit about the kind of time leading up to that period and what happened that day.
So, there was no change in our lives, our personal lives, up to that day. I mean, he was being harassed by a couple of jealous doctors. and this is what led to the ugliness around his death posthumously, you know, his death afterwards. So they were like trying to take him down. I mean, it was really pathetic and just very un-American, but very American in the same way, might I add. I love being an American, but we are really dumb. And
there's also an element, isn't there, of build somebody up and then pull them down that the human nature seems to be very fond of. You know, we love nothing more than building people up, and then you know the media are classic examples.
Yeah, our media is better. I think they're kinder, but you know, and this was a small town, but really it was one doctor who, you know, did this to him or tried to do this to him, and there was nothing happening. Actually, it was really quiet and the whole nonsense was going on for a couple of years actually before he died, these threats and the jealousy and all this stuff. And you know, our attorney was like, don't worry about it, this guy does this to everybody, they're always trying to kick people out. This is the old west in America. It's the old west, so it really can be the wild west. So it has its own sort of, you know, I don't know, like justice, Southwestern justice, and like New York has its own justice, whatever. Texas has its, there's different little justice systems. So they were trying to get the old boys network to egg out the new guy, and he was harmless. In fact, the patients that he couldn't serve, he would actually send them to this mean doctor who had been there for 40 years before us and was not successful. So of course, what will a narcissistic, disturbed person do? Oh, you're the reason. You just came here. You're the reason I haven't done well my whole career. Buddy, you didn't do well because you were a bad surgeon. You were poorly trained. And we had patients coming to us that he deformed. They would go in for a nose job. They'd come out with a facelift and an eye lift. That is completely against the law and against all ethics that doctors practice. It's against the Hippocratic Oath. And
hang on. If they did the surgery that you hadn't requested, hang on, I'm just going to make sure my microphone's on because... Again, off topic, but I have to ask. If I was to go in for a nose job and I was to wake up with a facelift in a night, I mean, you know,
you're stuck.
Is it free? But but would you be charged? Like, what would happen?
He charged, and his guys was, well, you needed this. First of all, it was out without patient consent. He charged them for it, and these people are like, what do you have a new face? You didn't ask for a new face. And you have a new face. And to be honest, there's in particular one patient we knew who we were good friends with. She looked terrible. He wasn't good at his job. He pulled her too tightly. He did her eyes too small, took too much skin, and she knew she was deformed. So she sued him. This is right. So we knew some attorneys who actually were hired by his malpractice insurance, and they're like, oh, he's awful. He's one of the worst surgeons around. And of course he's coming after you because he thinks you're the reason in the few years you've been here that he's failed his entire career. But he was sued. And I mean, and I may be saying this incorrectly, but in this country, you say you were sued. That means that someone successfully won money from you.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what the other term is, but he was sued and he had to pay out millions of dollars over his career to botched surgeries. And that's pretty bad.
Wow.
So because this was an old boys network in the state of New Mexico, in the city of Santa Fe, at the time, he was friends with people, of course, on the medical board, and they never got rid. He should have been had his license taken away with the amount of lawsuits he had, and they didn't do that because let's give him whatever. He's our friend. That's unacceptable. And in fact, those doctors should have also gotten a lot of trouble. One of the doctors on the board also was a nephrologist, and he did some very shady business dealings, and he actually had his license taken away, and then it was reinstated after punishments and whatever. So like these low-level scum were swimming around in the shark tank, and they saw the most beautiful, sweetest shark of all. Well, he wasn't even a shark, but whatever. The most beautiful. Dolphin. Yeah, well, actually, you know what? They saw a whale is what they saw. And they were to take this guy down. My husband was a whale. And so whatever, they tried to take him down. He died in the middle of all this. So we actually never had our day, which really pissed me off because we were coming for them. We were silent. But you think someone like this was what makes me full of rage. Do you think someone as trained as my husband in every Ivy League institution he ever wanted to go to, lauded by his institutions, the top of his class? This is like being at the top of your class at Oxford. That's who my husband was. He was in the 1% of his Ivy League classes in every university. He was double boarded. He went to medical school 2 times, one for pediatrics, the other for surgery. And then he became a specialist in plastic surgery. He was phenomenal. And it's why I married him. He was so smart and so talented. Right? Yeah, like a billionaire in the brain department and just so kind. So anyway, did these little Yahoo cowboys actually think we were scared? No. So we were just being quiet. So they tried to do everything they could to like take out ads saying he was a bad surgeon. I mean, like you name it in American hysteria, they tried to do it in our tiny town. So it wasn't the public. Nobody turned against him. We had no lawsuits. We had no patient complaints. This was one doctor. And trust me, karma is very real because after my husband, the whale, was killed, that surgical center that he operated in went out of business. And this loser had nowhere to operate because he was feeding off my husband's. It was a public, private surgical center, day center, but my husband's the one that kept it in business. So it's very funny actually. And people are like, don't you wish he was dead? Don't you want to kill him? I said, no, actually, I wish that guy a very long life.
Very, very long life.
Very long.
Yes. Sometimes that's more punishment, isn't it?
The best. And karma, and get this, I'll throw this little piece in too. He called himself a Buddhist. He had a whole little group of people. He called himself a Buddhist sensei. So he was literally espousing, the teachings of Buddhism, yet completely dual-faced. Sick individual. Sick. Yeah.
This, though, it must have been quite... I get, and I can tell from your tone that this wasn't something that was massively playing on your minds. But having, done a Google search for you before the interview, which I do for most guests,
it's all there.
What I'm seeing is newspaper articles where the headline might be that your husband has died, but within that headline, under investigation.
Yeah.
Now, I sit here and I speak to you, woman to woman, and I can tell that your husband was a good man, right?
Oh
but to the average Joe picking up that newspaper article, again, humans love scandal. They love to, that must have impacted on you hugely. And I do want to get to it, but I think actually for kind of continuity, we should probably talk about what happened to Daniel and kind of circle back to that. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
and we'll go into all of this because it's a teaching for anyone. Again, this was a tiny town in USA. This is not like New York City news. This was a slow month, not a lot going on. Apparently, we were very important to people in a good way. I mean, we knew we did good work. So he died. So he was on his way home. We both had these terrible colds that toddlers will give you. The toddlers are running around fine, but we're like knocked on our behind and barely breathing. And he was a surgeon. So he never took medicine because he didn't want it to affect how his brain functioned. But because he was a high octane surgeon, he was able to like focus and wipe himself out during the day to give to his patients, and then would come home and collapse on days like that. Like that's just what they do. That level of human.
Like parenting, actually, when you power through,
you just keep going, right? Carry on. Yes, exactly. Get sick and carry on. Mm-hmm. So but whatever. He had that germ, and I had it too, and we had fevers. Like it was bad. But he would see his patients with a mask, and then they were obviously in the OR, all masked up anyway. But he went to again, they've been after us for like 3 years of all this nonsense, and it wasn't weighing on us like you would think. Like if you weren't, it wasn't weighing on us. This was an ongoing thing. He was about to have his hearing, which they tried to deny him. I mean, the whole thing was such a circus, but they had no idea what we had lined up. We unfortunately could never take care of it. So he was very sick. I made sure to tell his nurses that he ate that day because I said, he's really sick. He's exhausted, make sure he eats because, a lot of doctors just don't eat because they're so busy and they just don't think about it. So he ate a little bit of salad that day. And then he came home as usual. We had a radio show actually back then.
I saw that. Yeah.
It was very cute. It was his thing. And we had, I think it was a paraplegic skier who ran a school for, I think, paralyzed people, something like that. It was people who, like special, I don't want to call it special needs, but people who were missing limbs or physically challenged, and yet they still competed in skiing.
Yeah.
So it was a therapeutic program. So he had that. And he's like, listen, this guy came all the way down. Because I said, you need to just cancel the show and come home and go to sleep for the weekend. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. He came all the way down. He's been counting on this, this recording. And, we're going to do it. I'll power through and then I'll come home and crash. No problem. So we were talking on the way home, and I said to him, I use these words, you sound dead tired, like I've never heard you sound before. You almost sound like you're not in your body. This is weird. You're really too tired for this. He's like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to cancel last minute. Like, this is important to this man. And I got it. That was my husband. I was like, all right. Call me when you get there. And I said, I'm going to go make your beautiful meal, because I wanted to make him, like, super warm, cozy meal for when he came home, because he was sick. And call my mom, and, call these other people on your way home. So he did. It was the way he kept awake, because he would always, actually, not always, but often fall asleep when he drove. So the people listening, fatigued driving is worse than drunk driving, studies have shown, at least in the US. And it's not a joke. So, and he would, and it was always a grave concern. And I used to tell him, actually, years before, I was like, if we don't do something about your fatigue when you drive, you actually could die on these roads one day. I would say that over the years, never thinking it would happen, but it was a fear, because he would drive when we were in the car with him. I'd be like, wake up. Okay, pull over. I'm going to take over. He was a surgeon. He was always tired. So, we hung up the phone. I said, okay, call these people and then call me back if you want. I'm going to go start your dinner. He said, okay, great. Love you. Bye. The kids were on the phone. Bye, Daddy. I love you. It was a normal conversation. And then that was like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before the accident ended up happening. And I said, go to this coffee shop on the highway and get your coffee. He goes, yes, that's where I'm headed to. He never made it. And he never made it to the radio show. And I never heard from him. Normally, when he would be, if he would record alone, I'd be like, okay, call me on your way home. We'll talk about what we're going to do tonight, blah, blah. We were always in communication, like talked all the time, texting, talking, whatever. So we liked to talk to each other. So he would always call me on the way home. So I was like, he didn't call me back. Well, he must be just relaxing and listening to classical music and just like letting go of the day or whatever and getting into the vibe for the radio show. So I didn't really think anything of it. But then he didn't call me after I knew the show would be wrapped. And I was like, that's weird. That's not normal. But maybe he's just tired and just wants to hurry up and get home, which was also unusual for him. But
again, well, you're bargaining.
Exactly. I was like, who would think their husband's dead? So that wasn't even a concern. But I was like, that's a little weird. But all right. I called my mom. My mom lived in our guest house. I was like, Mom, Daniel didn't call me. I thought he might. Did he call you? She, yeah, he called me. I was like, oh, when? Oh, yeah, on his way up. And I said, oh, okay. She goes, he didn't call you on the way home from the radio show? I said, no. She goes, well, that's odd. Again, because this was his usual way. And so I kept calling. Again, why would you ever think your husband's dead? And then I was like, something's really wrong. I made my mother come into our house, the main house. And I was like, something's up. So I called my best friend and I said, something's not right. And she was really funny. She's like, all right, I'm coming over. So I was like, why are you coming over? She goes, something's not right. This isn't right. And also, we thought maybe he was killed by this bad surgeon. He was that crazy. I was like, maybe he killed him. And then I'm not a dramatic person, but I was like, this guy is that desperate to try and take my husband out. He probably knows it's not going to work. Maybe he's going to try and kill him. Like, who knows, this crazy person. So we started doing whatever we had to do. We called the police. This is slow. The part of USA that's very slow. So it's very relaxed. And, whatever.
And my husband hasn't come home from work, I guess, on the first phone call. They're not going to treat that as a priority, are they?
No. But then when they found out who it was, they're like, all right, let us call around. So nothing happened in our county. They ended up calling around to the other counties. I said, well, look, he went through Bernalillo. He was in Albuquerque. Like, call the counties in between us and where he started. So they did. And then I got the call. They're like, you need to come down to the station. I said, oh, okay, sure. What's going on? And they said, could you just please come down to the station? I was like, he's been killed. That man murdered him. And I was like, you need to look into this doctor. I don't know what, like, they wouldn't tell me. I was like, just tell me. So we get to the station and it was a young man, a young officer. I think this was his first death call. And he started crying. I said, are you okay? I had no clue. Are you okay? What's wrong? Oh, what can I do for you? He's like, no, ma'am, I'm crying for you. And I said, why? And he told me. And I said, what? I said, listen, I love us, but we get everything wrong here. Can you send me a picture of his driver's license? And, so I know it's him. Maybe it was someone else. And then sure enough, they sent the picture and I was like, damn it. And I was like, well, this is obviously, I went into immediate denial. I was like, this is impossible. No. I said, how do you know he's dead? He's probably injured. What hospital is he in? Nope. Like, it was, I don't really even remember after that. My best friend at the time was there and she's like, Betsy, you just need to, don't talk to her. Talk to me, officer. You give me permission? Yes. Talk to her. I don't, what? And I just went numb and I wanted to throw up and my hands were shaking and I was like having a cold sweat. I mean, I went into shock immediately.
Of course.
It was unreal. And I was like, our life is like, what just happened to, like, my kid, we have kid, and I was pregnant. I was pregnant at the time. I was like, we have babies, like, what? Hold on, you have to come back. Like, no, like all of it, all of it. Our life, what happened to our lives? I mean, it was nuts, and you just don't want to believe it.
And it's that catastrophic split in time, isn't it? And I'm thinking of you, you know, he's not been in touch. Your spidey senses are tingling a little bit. But even the fact that you haven't manically started calling his phone until later on says to me that your body was doing that bargaining, that denial, because I'm the same. I didn't speak to Ben all day. Why didn't I ring him? Like, where did I think he was? But you will have made all these little excuses because at no point do you want to acknowledge that something might have happened. And even when you've had the call to go to the police station, you know, you'd still be there and then, you know, show me his driving license. I can feel the desperation in you of 15 years ago, you know?
Who wants to accept that? Who wants to accept that your life is over as you knew it? And the love of your life is gone. The father of your children is gone. Whoever it is, your parent, your best friend, your cousin, whoever you were so unbelievably close with, but there's nobody closer than a spouse, a child, or a parent. Like those are the three tightest bonds for most people. You don't want to believe that your lifeline's gone.
And that finality, you know, that you're never going to see them again. That's to have that vibrant life extinguished. Say the word properly, extinguished.
Yes,
in a moment, it just doesn't seem possible, and no wonder that we try and rationalize it. Betsy, how old were your children at the time?
So our oldest had just turned 8. So I was actually grateful that he was able to spend. My son had just turned 8 about 10 days before or so ish. So I was grateful for him because he's the one who would remember him, that he got to celebrate one final birthday with him. And then our youngest was 4.
Okay, so then they were really up babies, and you were pregnant at the time.
Very early pregnancy. Yeah, we were trying. We wanted to have 4 kids, so we were in the middle of trying again. And
that baby, did you make?
I miscarried. Yeah, I miscarried, and my mother was like, "That's a blessing." What? She's like, 4 children. Yeah, you're going to deliver these children in acute grief. How are you going to afford this? How are you going to mentally afford it? No, and then I ended up miscarrying, and I was like, okay, you're right. It was really awful.
And I imagine that sort of secondary loss at a time when you were already grieving so much, perhaps would have almost slipped past in a way. You know, had it happened and you not been in that state of grief, that would have been an enormous grief.
Correct.
It's weird how things have a sort of hierarchy when you're grieving.
Yes. Oh yeah. This took, I really wasn't even, I was sad. Like, the last evidence of my husband, you know, his DNA was gone. There was that piece, but honestly, I was like, I didn't even know these little embryos. No. Like you don't even have a body yet. Like they were literally, in their embryonic state, pretty much.
And you had to focus on the 8 and the 4-year-olds, right?
My God, and myself, and then the business of death. So he was killed. I didn't know. I wasn't told actually until from the time they actually determined he died. I wasn't told till about 3 hours later.
I had similar with Ben, he died at like 10 in the morning. They didn't tell me till 7 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Just going about my business, moaning about my husband.
You'll find out when it's time. Wow.
I still don't really know how they account for that time, but it's one of the battles that I haven't had the strength to fight,
Yeah. I know.
So what happened? So he was in a car accident. So
he fell asleep.
Oh, Betsy.
Yeah, he was so that's what I'm saying. I know myself too. We pushed through it, but it's really not a joke because you fall asleep and you're blacked out. You don't even know you're that tired. And it took 2.2. So there was a huge investigation, obviously, because he was a young father. He was well known. He had, helped a lot of policemen out with their wives and stuff. So it was like, they really cared about this extra, I think. And they care about everyone, of course. But I don't know. It just felt like, and again, I don't have these dealings with the police ever. So it just felt like they were going above and beyond to help.
I think often when it's a young family, I think that there is that sort of additional impetus, and we know that everybody should be treated exactly equally, but I think when you're looking at a grieving mother with 2 small children, that incentive to do more.
Exactly.
And like you're saying, when you're a well-respected member of the community as well.
Who had given a lot back. I mean, he would take care of their wives, and even them. Some of them had little, pooches on their belly that they wanted to get rid of. He would take care of it, just because he was in the Air Force. He was in the Air Force, so he was all about like the services and really valued the fire department and the police department tremendously. So he had immense respect. So he was like, "Come on, let's go. You're not paying me a thing. You pay the anesthesiologist, not me, whatever." So he did a lot. So I think that they all kind of, the word spread about how good he was, good-hearted, and they're like, "Oh shit, it's Dr. Ronel." So I don't know. All I can say is my experience with them was they went above and beyond for me, and they probably do that for everyone. But I knew that I was at the forefront of their mind. So they did a very serious and lengthy investigation. They knew when he decelerated, when he lost speed. They knew when he exited the roadway, and they knew when he hit, like, here we have the rumble strip to like wake you up from or startle you from going off the road. They knew when he hit that, because apparently at that point he hit the brakes. Very insane. And there's 2 bridges on the highways there out on one of these main highways that don't have protectors. This was the first of the 2. And they're both actually very close to the road. There were many people, because they leave markers, the families leave markers there, many people who had been killed right at that site before. And then the bridge after as well, because it's right. If you have one misstep or you look down and you turn away, it's a matter of seconds and you're at that bridge. So it was crazy. And you can't, I was like, the highway department needs to do something. They're like, you can't tell the highway department anything. They're immune from all problems, which is disgusting. Yeah. But anyway, so he crashed on the passenger side, not even head on, not on his side, the passenger side of the vehicle. And he died from what we call a broken neck. His head went back and forth despite the airbags. It wasn't the car's fault. We looked into all of that. He died innocently and honestly. He fell asleep and crashed into the bridge on the passenger side. Now, people survived getting run over by a semi-truck, but he didn't survive this for whatever reason. And that's where I have to give it up to a higher power.
Yeah, there is. And I don't want to make it all about me, Betsy, but there are some parallels with our stories. This idea that these kind of capable, strong men made instantaneous decisions, driving tired. Ben shouldn't have gone in the water. He'd been sick. Yeah. And the fact that it's all kind of the conspiracy of poor luck, isn't it? Because on a different day, even he might have gone into a bush, right, or, he might have got to the coffee shop first. Ben might, but it's the coulda, shoulda, wouldas that drive you completely mad when you don't have the answers.
You have to let it go. It is what it is.
You do. You have to make like Elsa.
Yes, exactly. You just do. It's terrible, and it is what it is. And that's where I do believe in a higher power. I do believe there's a reason that you didn't call Ben all day. I do believe there was a reason I didn't get hysterical right away. Somehow the universe was leading us very gently and slowly into our new reality. I mean, it's as crazy as that might sound to some people. I have to believe that. I don't know anything else.
I think it's the sheer uncertainty of it, isn't it, of pure fate and pure luck, because you think, well, how can I stop anything like this happening again? You have to believe that there is some degree of purpose or reason. I struggle with the concept of a higher power, but I think when we spoke last time, I was saying I'm starting to explore the spirituality side. Yeah. I did go and see a medium. I'm unsure. I think I need to see another one. I'll chat to you about this later. But I'm going to do a podcast episode on it, because not as like an expose or anything, but I really want to talk about this need for some sort of connection, however that may be. But
yes, and what is that? And is it even, look, I could be fooling myself. He could be dead in the ground by now, probably disintegrated down to the skeleton, and it is what it is, and he's really not buzzing around like I like to think he is, and it was just bad luck, and he died. What harm does it do?
What harm is it doing? Exactly. What harm? And I think that's the really fundamental bit, is why don't judge other people if it's not doing any harm.
Never. It's my own thing. Yeah.
So, Betsy, I know we talked about those kind of newspaper articles a little bit earlier on, and that must have been quite distressing, even if it is kind of just a local paper. If they're within the headline, if they are correlating the death of your husband, this enormous tragedy, with a potential wrongdoing in medicine, and he's not here to defend himself. So And you say he would have loved his day in court. He was, he was coming back punching.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, there's nothing you can do to stop that almost mudslinging to a dead man. So how did that impact on you?
I learned a lot. So first of all, a dead person's a very easy target,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't know how tough I was. So I was there ready to go. And I had nothing to defend because like the things that he was dealing with were accusations, never by a patient. They were by other doctors. Then they went and like got some patients, like paid them off or whatever. I mean, like I knew the cases that they brought forward. And I was like, I even know those cases. I don't know their names, but I knew the cases. One thing I trained my husband to do, because I come from a family of doctors, is you have to be transparent. They've got to sign all these forms. They've got to acknowledge all of this. So like, and my husband just wasn't a bad surgeon. So he did the best that he could do. He was like, I cut, God heals. That was one of his expressions that he learned in his training. So there was really no problems. It's just when they took out a fishing net and were like, who was a patient of Dr. Daniel Ronel's? Of course, people who are disgusting came forward. That's with anything. Like in this country, we have these class action lawsuits on TV for ads constantly. It's low-level attorneys that want to make a buck. And they do.
I remember being surprised. I was over in New York earlier this year, and all the big adverts for the lawyers at the side of the road, and it's like watching Better Call Saul or something,
Yes,
isn't it?
It's that.
Yeah.
It's that. It's Better Call Saul 1,000 times worse. So, but it is. Listen, this is a capitalist society. You're going to try and make your buck. No problem. I get you. This isn't personal. We don't know each other. I understand you're disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. But this is your chosen profession. There's so many other things you could do. But all right, you chose this level of law. Fine, no problem. You're going to do what you got to do. But again, that didn't concern me because it was like looking at thin air. Like, there's nothing here. You've got nothing. You know you're weak. Like, this is nonsense. I care about what's going on here with my kids and myself. So the bad doctor, the one who came after him up in Santa Fe, said to someone, and again, it's a small town, oh yeah, he killed himself. He came into a jeweler who was a good friend of mine and my husband's the next morning after he died on a Friday night. This was Saturday morning. And he comes in and my friend Dell said, oh my God, did you hear about Dr. Ronel? His poor family. He's like, what are you talking about, poor family? And she said, well, didn't you hear? And he goes, yes, that's why I'm in here. I'm celebrating. I'm so happy. He killed himself. I'm buying some jewelry for my wife.
Oh,
on his grave.
A human being.
I mean, like, it's like, but it's so pathetic. Like, I never even got angry about that.
It's almost laughable. It's like a caricature of a cartoon, isn't it?
It is. It didn't hurt my feelings. I was like, wow, I don't even know this level of crazy. And bro, if this is what you're going to do, it was telling of him. I was like, keep telling your story.
I'm curious to know what piece of jewelry you get from your husband when his rival and enemy dies, because
his made-up rival.
Where is that? I mean, what are we giving for that?
Yeah. And we made this up. My husband never thought about him except to be like, hey, you know what? I don't have room for you. Why don't I send you to him? He wasn't a good surgeon, but he tries to say, why don't you meet him? You know, he may have time in his schedule, whatever. Disgusting. So he was a made-up rival in this guy's mind, and he's the one who put it in people's heads that my husband killed himself. So, and this was our theory. We were such a public couple out there. Believe you me, if my husband had suffered from depression and mental illness and did kill himself, the first thing I would have said was, yes, he did kill himself. And let me tell you, let me help others so you don't ever have to go through this. I mean, he just, I'm sorry to say, for people who want to make it crazy, naked, like, he didn't kill himself. If you saw our text messages that day, you would have known he didn't kill himself because there was some dirty sex texting going on.
Oh, no, sex.
That was what the police said to, like, Mrs. Ronel. Yeah, they saw everything. And they were like, so we're going to need his computers. I was like, absolutely, take everything. Come to my house. Do whatever you need because I got nothing here. And also there was a very large life insurance policy because we were young. We had some money, but not much. And so you bet your bippy, as my husband used to say, if a life insurance has to pay out, they're going to do a very thorough investigation. They paid out in full plus interest. Sorry, fuckers. So anyway, that's not to be gross, but it's like nobody's going to pay out if they don't have to, if it's an insurance company.
God, no, I had a terrible battle with the ones. Ben was, fortunately, he had insurance, but so Ben's bank account was frozen.
Yes,
because he was legally dead.
Yeah,
the payments to the life insurance companies were bounced back because the bank was closed. So I called to say, the question I had was he covered for extreme sports? Because I know not everybody ticks that box, right?
Smart.
And they sort of went through the process and they said, well, unfortunately, Mrs. Moss, the payments lapsed. I said, well, that's because he's dead and he can't pay the payments. And it was touch and go over whether they would pay out this life insurance, which, and again, it wasn't even a significant amount of money. It didn't actually even clear my mortgage, but it was the difference between me keeping my home or not. And
that's
it was
critical.
like they wanted a way of not paying out on this life insurance. You bet they did.
They love, their job is not to give the money away. That's their job. Their job is to take the money and keep it. So they're not going to pay out. So with something like this, when all those people, it wasn't even all those people, it was maybe a handful of people. And really, I don't hold any issue with the general public that was like, oh, because of course, if you look at the hysteria that the media likes to create and, the way we're trained with soap operas, movies, now social media, we're trained to think the worst. Anyone who didn't know us, I cannot blame them for thinking, oh yeah, look, he was being hunted. He was a bad man. He took the easy way out. Oh yeah, I get it. I have no judgment. I completely understand why people would think that. Sorry to say that wasn't the case. And when you go into the business of death, life insurance is part of that business. And I was paid in full plus interest. So, and it was amazing. What I loved was the depth and also the depth that the police went to in their investigation. Obviously I've never had to deal with them, but they knew everything. So, and when it was under investigation, yes, because it was a single car crash and, he was dealing with this nonsense with the crazy crooked medical board at the time. So of course it was under investigation and that's fine. And it legally was under investigation because they needed to make sure that he wasn't killed. Number one, because I had this doctor investigated. Number two, they didn't kill himself. And then number three, that there was just no foul play on my part. Maybe I killed him. Who knows?
Yeah. So, talk about having the police come and take computers or, look around the house. They had to do that with Ben because he was missing. So although it was a very kind of perfunctory search because my children were in the house, it was still, you suddenly find yourself as a stand-up member of the community with police in your house looking to see if you've stashed your husband somewhere. It's crazy. And they were lovely, they were kind. And you want them to do it, of course. But
you want them to
very, very strange.
Yes. But we knew. We're like, yes, sure, do it. And they were kind because they knew they just had to, they have their systems and their processes. They have to comply. And I was like, absolutely. So our detective called me up and he was like, Mrs. Ronel. And I said, what? And he said, I don't even, I saw the text message. I said, wow, okay, we had a happy marriage. What can I tell you? He's like, you sure did. It was very funny. It was very funny.
Oh, I love that though. I love that. I don't love it for you now, but I love it for you then.
But it's part of the history of our marriage. Like you, we were happily married. We're proud of our marriages. We were so lucky to have the husbands that we had, even if it wasn't for that long, and the children we made with them. So, I know in the 12 and a half years we knew each other, my husband and I in total, that I had more love in my life, unfortunately, than many long marriages do. So I'm so grateful.
I agree. And it seems almost crazy to refer to yourself as lucky, but I do feel lucky that I had him because having kind of seen friends' marriages break down, having my own second marriage break down, having dipped my toe into the murky world of online dating, Jesus Christ, how fucking lucky were we?
We were. There's a comedian, Leslie Jones. Do you know her? From Saturday
Not off the top of my head, but I'm terrible at names. I'm writing it down.
So Leslie Jones is a magnificent comedian. She got her start, at least to the public, on SNL, Saturday Night Live here. She since left and has her own road show. She goes all over the country right now. And she was on the Drew Barrymore show and she said, listen, Drew, why don't they just make an app that's called What's Left? Because that's what it feels like. Not on the women's side. There's a lot of really great women who are single, but on the men's side, there's a reason they're not with someone.
Lost turkey in the shop.
Yeah, exactly. Good Lord. So yeah, it sucks. But we are, and lucky for us, we always have that to look, and it fills us, I think, way more than we even know.
I agree. And I was actually just listening to some quotes of episodes that I'm putting out in the upcoming weeks, and there was one, and it said, he gave me the strength to deal with what happened.
Bingo.
And I thought, isn't that a powerful expression, that being loved by somebody, having somebody pour that kind of little drops of confidence, not somebody, Ben wasn't the kind of man to be like, you are a babe, you're amazing. He wasn't that sort of man, but he was quietly supportive and loving. And I think without that, I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Of course not. Same. I mean, there is something called complicated grief, and that's for the women who end up having had an unhealthy marriage, or maybe there was question of divorce and stuff, and then the husband dies. That's way worse. You and I, in terms of the grief world, got off easy.
It's a pure grief, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's how I describe it, is it's pure, because I didn't find messages on his phone. I didn't found that he had a secret family, or, that he secretly hated me. It was a pure love. There's lots of messages to my friends moaning about him, but
right, of course,
that's female friendships, right?
Yes, that's normal. Yeah. I know, but I describe it the same way, Rosie. Pure grief. I say my grief is pure.
Yeah, and I think that's something I really hold on to, that it's not been tarnished by anything.
Nothing.
Betsy, how old are your... I could do the maths myself. Hang on, 15 plus 4, that'd be 19, and 15 plus 8. Oh my God,
22. about 23, yes. Very good.
Quick, arithmetic. And I actually briefly met one of your sons, didn't I? We were on a Zoom call or something, and he appeared.
Yes.
And from what you've told me and what little I know, they are well-rounded, amazing, successful humans.
Thank God.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because a lot of my listeners are not 11 years down the line. There may be 1, 2, and some even less, and they will be looking at children who are 8 and 4 or thereabouts and thinking, how the fuck do I get them through this without them being scarred forever? And you and I know that the scars persist. They're there. They're not going anywhere, but it doesn't have to define them. And so I'm waffling a bit, Betsy, but tell me how you got those children through it.
Well, just to go off what you just said, it doesn't have to define them. The death shouldn't define the beautiful relationship they may or may have been able to have beforehand with the young children. So the death shouldn't be the defining point. It's the end of that physical relationship, but that shouldn't override all the memories that you have, and that if they were too young to remember their father, that you do have on video, on the phone, in photos, whatever. That was the life, and that's what has to be celebrated. So yeah, look, we all looked at, and any of you just starting out or whatever, or midway through, you are looking at a very steep uphill climb, and you will make strides and you will fall back. You'll make more strides, you'll fall back again. This is just the nature of it. But what I can say, and this is what I focused on personally. So I'll just tell you this, the first 2 years after he died, I pretty much slept for 2 years. I took them to school. I don't even think I really made them that much food. I think my older son had to step in and make them food. We didn't have a nanny. It was just us. And my mother, was in her own misery for my husband dying. So she really wasn't much help. But my older son at 8, I know, I was like, excuse me, he was my husband. What? But he was totally in love with him. It was so cute. They had their own little world together. So
when you said he was phoning her on the way home, I was like, cute.
Oh, they were very, very, I was sick of both of them. I was like, get out, go away, both of you, leave me with my children. So it was really great. They were best friends. So, so it was really my older son had to learn to make, quick things for my younger son when they had to be fed. I broke my leg. I just remember sleeping a lot. I was able to offer them as much love as I could. They'd have to come to me in my bed because I was mentally paralyzed. I couldn't do much. My friends helped me take them to and from school. I mean, it was bad. So it's going to affect you all. No one gets out of this unscathed, right? I mean, something's going to break.
How could you?
You can't. Something's going to give. I was numb the first 2 years and slept, like I said. Then the second 2 years, I found a bad boyfriend, brought him into our lives. Anyway, whatever. So the first 4 years sucked, and they were really awful. And I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. It all kind of makes sense.
No, I love it all. Give me all of it.
Yeah, it all kind of makes sense. So first 2 years I was numb. I slept. I didn't start any kind of, alcohol abuse, overeating. I wasn't doing any of that because I was numb and nothing had sunk in yet. Then I woke up.
You were kind of already numb. You didn't need to use the coping mechanism.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was so it was like I was, not drunk, but comatose from when you're drunk and asleep. That's how I was naturally. So really strange.
Free.
Yeah, exactly. For free, right? No weight gain, nothing. So it was all good. Just slept and wasted away for 2 years. But then I woke up. It was very odd. I don't remember the day, but I remember waking up at one point in the second year, like absolutely terrified because the numbness had worn off. It was like I came back to life. And then I was in a deep terror. Like, I can't do this alone. I don't want to be a mother alone. These children deserve a father figure. I don't know what happened with Daniel, but I got to move on. I mean, it was really insane. You're not in your right mind. You're just not. And so instead of looking into, and I had a therapist, a very good therapist. I would see her at this point 3 times a week sometimes because I was just,
Wow.
Yep. Oh, I was really like numb, scared, afraid, like you name it, I was feeling it. And she was like on speed cost. That's what cost me a lot of money was the therapy back then, because she was on speed dial because she knew, she was like, Betsy, you could kill yourself. Like, you are that affected by this. I need to make sure that you're going to be okay. So you call me whenever, and yes, you're going to pay for it, but I want you alive, and I want you
alive, and you have the money to do it. And that's the thing, isn't it? Money is worth nothing if you're in an institution or the ground.
Correct. And my children would have had nothing. They could have had all the money in the world, but they wouldn't have had 2 parents.
No.
So my therapist was like, listen to me, you're not going anywhere. And I did. I never tried to take my own life, but I understand why someone would. I never understood before because I had no experience with it. I didn't, I have anxiety disorder, but I never had that kind of depth of mental illness. Yeah, you can go that. I have a way of pulling myself out. People who do, but what I do understand is the sheer pain and that impossible feeling that they feel. I wanted to die. I wished that every day someone would hit me head on and I would never have to go home again. Like, I wanted so badly to die all the time, and my therapist was acutely aware of this. And I was like, I'm going to kill myself today. Today's the day. She's like, no, it's not. I was like, how do you know? And she was a psychologist. She knew. She's like, you wouldn't be telling me about it the way you are if you had a plan. Like,
but you needed somewhere to say it, because you can't say it to those children. And for a lot of people, and sorry, I'm interrupting you a little bit, but when you talk about kind of coming out of this sort of semi-comatose state, you're talking about coming back to sort of your grief, but you're coming back into it to the outside world quite far in, because people believe that when you get to a year, maybe 2 years, you're done. So I'm picturing this version of Betsy that's been in her pit of doom, and then you come out and you're hit with all this grief, and people perhaps are very confused by it or don't quite know. And again, I am relating to my own experience because kind of that's what we do, right? When I got sober, the same thing. My grief came back, or it hit me again, and I felt get a little disenfranchised in my grief, because I was like, it's been 4 years. I'm sorry, I'm crying about my dead husband.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, we numbed it out. And then it's always waiting for you. That's why you can't avoid it. No. So I got scared. My friends were like, well, it's time now to move on. And I didn't know. But I was like, I don't feel like moving on. And they are the ones that like, go get a boyfriend. So I did, whatever. Anyway, that's an aside. The point is there's no way around the grief. It will be waiting for you when you come back to earth.
Yeah,
so you're going to drink through it, drug through it, sleep through it, sex through it, spend through it, eat through it, travel through it, whatever. It's still going to be waiting for you when you come back and wake up.
And you're either going to have to deal with it at the end, or you're going to die trying to avoid it. Aren't you? Those are your kind of 2 outcomes.
Correct. And if you have kids or family or friends, nobody wants you to die too. They want you. It is an impossible feeling, and it is impossible. But here's a stupid saying, but it's true. In the word impossible is I'm possible.
I'm possible.
It's so trite, but it's true, because if you're still here, we need you here. Your kids need you. So what I did to try my best to make sure they would be whole is I was very authentic and honest with them about my feelings, not about like wanting to die, but like how sad I was. I would cry. I wouldn't hide the crying. When I showed them, because these were boys, what I showed them was it's okay to feel. And my therapist taught me this expression, feel your feelings. I was like, that is so stupid. But she's right. She was right. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. But
then suddenly you do. Because you feel your feelings.
I did then, and I do now. And so I told my boys, it's okay. Feel your feelings. I feel really sad today. I'm not leaving the house. I'm sorry. Maybe tomorrow will be better. Maybe in a few hours will be better. Right now, I'm not leaving the house, and that's okay. So I learned to give myself a lot of grace. I learned to really know what it is to feel your feelings. And that is why I understand why people become addicted to something else, why people do take their own lives, because those are feelings no one wants to sit with. They're so dark and they're so edgy. They're awful, but you will get through it. So I got my boys into therapy just because I was like, the first thing you're supposed to do in America is go to therapy. I was like, oh yeah, you two are going to go to
You
therapy.
guys go to therapy from the utero, don't you? You pop out straight in.
I've had a therapist since I was 12 years old, on and off. No joke. My parents got divorced. They sent me into therapy. I didn't do anything. Anyway, it's the American way, especially in New York. New Yorkers are big in therapy.
Yeah,
yes. Oh my God.
We're a little bit step back here, but I think there's far less of a taboo about it. Like I would just say I can't come to coffee. I'm going to meet my counsellor.
Right.
Whereas I think even 5-10 years ago, it would have been a secret thing that you did. You wouldn't have talked about it so openly.
Yes.
And I think children, we underestimate how much support they might need. And I am a big believer in you kind of can't over support, particularly in the early days. And so it might be they don't need counselling, but try it. If you can afford it, try it.
Try it. Exactly. And also maybe like here we have school counselors, which are free. So you could do that. So what I did was, obviously everyone knew what had happened because everyone read the newspaper the next morning. So the school called me. Went to a very small school. The school called me like, what do you need? I said, I don't even know what I need, but I need your help. I don't know how to navigate this. I wasn't the first family to deal with this. So I was like, what have you done for the other families? Let's talk. So we discussed, the best way to approach us. And what I learned from that school and from my therapist was watch how the children are grieving, because children grieve very differently than adults. Yeah. So meet them where they are. If they want to laugh and go to the circus, I'm making that up. I don't support circuses, but if they want to laugh and go to the museum or go skiing or whatever, go with them. You don't have
you can have circuses without animals. They're okay.
Yeah. Yes. Circus without an animal is fine. Cirque du Soleil is fabulous. Yeah. No animals.
But yeah, you're right. And I talk quite a lot on the podcast about the moment I told the boys, and then I came downstairs and they were playing Harry Potter, full costumes, one's out. And I thought, oh my God, what's the matter with you? And it is you. But there will be times sometimes where I look back and I think my child sat under a chair at a party because he was overwhelmed with emotion. And because we expect child grief to look like adult grief.
Yes.
There's a real lack of understanding around it and how they process their feelings.
Yeah, they process it actually through play, through imagination. But yeah, you just want to keep an eye on them to make sure that they're not doing maybe something that's, hiding under the chair too many times, that they're not stopping going out with their friends. You don't want the grief to stop their daily life. It can pause it, but you don't want their normal behaviors, the things they love, that they know that they maybe are no longer doing. That's when you maybe should be like, hold on, let me talk to them.
And for most children, routine, structure, it absolutely is the right thing. Ben died on the Monday. Mine were back in school on the Thursday. And it was the right thing to do then. It absolutely was. And I think the home is so sad and they need, my daughter, I took her to baby singing groups and all that. I didn't want to sing Wind the Bobbin Up in a church hall, but you do it because you've got to give them that sense of normality alongside the grief.
Yes. And you know what? It's actually good for your grief because it gives you something to get outside of your head. Even though you're in it when you're in the singing class or whatever, you're still in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that is important. That is a way the reason we go into shock with these kinds of things is because it's way too much for our system to handle. It's like when we have a heart attack, our body goes into shock because what's happened is an overload in our heart or something is not working or clogged up. That's why we have shock. So our body naturally goes into shock. I mean, I've equated this to having a traumatic brain injury because it was that hard hitting for me. So children, less so because they're younger, they can move through these things more easily. And so it helps integrate your new life, making an assimilation to it, accepting it over time, slowly, if you move through the children's lives with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that even made sense, but that's what I mean.
No, it did. And there's a lot of things about, around ceremony and legacy. And, Ben died on the 12th of March. You try and do something really important on that day. I found that doesn't work. You said about meeting the child where their grief is. And if on one day they are, you notice that they are clutching their father's jumper or they're asking to see pictures or there's a confusion, that's the time that they need to grieve. That's the time that they need your support. Maybe not because kids don't know dates either. That's the other thing is they don't know their dad died on that day until they're old enough for you to tell them.
Correct.
Betsy, I do want to ask you one thing that I do know about from coming on your podcast, and I think my listeners would be just a little bit. I want to know about what was your coping mechanism, Betsy? What did you do?
So after I woke up, after I went out with that bad man, I
The bad
started,
man.
yeah, the bad man. I started spending like my husband was still alive because again, you are not going to get through this unscathed. I'm sorry. It's going to come out one way or
Which is
the
some
other.
bad thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, good Lord. So,
Thank God it wasn't cocaine, Betsy.
right? I know. My thought was because again, I come from a whole medical family, so wellness is always on my mind. So I was like, what? I don't even think I rationalized this, but to me, the spending was the least of all evils. Like I knew I could always make more money. I knew I just had a, I don't know. I knew this was the way. I wasn't conscious, but somewhere in me, I was like, this is your favorite thing is to shop. So this is what we're going to dive into. So I started to spend like he was still here. I said yes to everything. We did everything. We vacationed like he was still here. We shopped like he was still here. I didn't think about money as though like I never did when he was still here because money was always coming. Like I didn't think. And I was warned by my financial advisor, if you don't stop this, you will be penniless in about 10 years. And I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Total denial. And I'm not penniless, thank God. But then one day I had a download in my head where it said, you're going to spend all this money until the brink of disaster and you're going to stop. It's exactly what happened. It's exactly.
So you get right to the point, and then that self-preservation kicked in right on the edge of the cliff.
Right there. Yeah. Right there.
Just what are we buying? Is it clothes? Talk to me.
I come from the fashion industry. So yes, I was like, oh, I can buy this. I can buy that. So here, one of the most beautiful stores is Neiman Marcus and its sister store, Bergdorf Goodman. So I was I would put the kids to bed and every night I'd be like, what do I want tonight? And I would go online and buy it. And I know my shoe size. I know how clothes fit. I know the brands I like. So there was no returns because I knew what fit.
And it's so easy. It's so easy, isn't it? You're not having to go into the shop and hand a card over. You're not seeing that number on the till.
No, exactly. It's so easy. So it's an addict's paradise. And my therapist said, she goes, I wouldn't call it, she goes, it was a temporary addiction. But she called it a situational addiction. She's like, you're not a shopping addict. You don't do it anymore.
You wouldn't have been able to stop, would you, that quickly?
No, I did. This went on for 10 years.
Oh
yeah. This went on for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We lived very nicely.
I was going to say.
Very nicely.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I made $1 million addition on our house that my husband and I were about to sort of kick into gear the summer had he stayed alive. That was our plan that summer. I was like, well, we're going to continue this anyway. So it was my continued lack of acceptance and our attempt to not accept that
if I act like everything is still the same, then this can't have happened.
Correct. I still couldn't process it.
Were you still in Santa Fe at the time?
We're still in Santa Fe. We lived in Santa Fe for a total of 13 years. So I kept our plan because another thing was I didn't want my children to think, okay, something bad, and you jump ship, you leave. Our life was really nice in Santa Fe. Mm-hmm. The town was so supportive. Strangers would drop off gifts at our gate. Like we were so supported by the community. It was so beautiful. And so many people knew my husband and just, whatever. And we were so surrounded by love in a city
and that's
of
so
60,000 people. It was extraordinary. So I was like, this is bad. Let's see the good side. And that's what I want them to see. But as they got older, they were like, God, everyone knows who we are. They know we have a dead dad. Uh-huh. Like, I don't want this. They didn't want to live like this. I said, don't worry. I said, but we're going to continue our plan. Daddy and I wanted to stay here until our oldest was in middle school. And then by the time it was high school time, we were going to come back anyway. We wanted them to finish their education in New York. So we were already transitioning. He had already signed a lease 1 week a month in New York City when he died. Like we were in the middle of our lives and then the beginning of our transitioning back to New York as it was going to happen in the next 4 to 5 years. So I just continued our plan. We stayed out there. The kids did very well. They had all their friends. All of that sameness was good for them on one level. And then as they got older, like, we're tired of talking about this. We don't want to talk about daddy's death anymore.
And the fact that they were then of an age where, because at 8 and 4, you can't make life decisions for your family, but that bit older, able to, again, it's giving them that kind of autonomy over a situation and saying, actually, we're not happy here now, Mum, we want to move.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh, actually, kids, Mum has got this.
Yeah, this was the plan anyway. So it all worked out the way it should have. And I moved us back to New York, to the area we were always going to move to anyway. And here we are.
And did you now work in real estate? Was that something that you did prior? Or is this something that you've kind of had to retrain in or chosen to retrain in, should I say?
Yes. So I've always loved real estate. And when we were out there, I would,
Me
do our,
too.
yeah, I love it. I always love it. And yes, it's a people business, but I happen to really like houses. So in any kind of situation, like I love home on every level. So I used to do that for us. We would buy a house, I would do it up, and then we'd rent it out or we would sell it. And I would do a really good job. And I was started to work with our own builder, and we had done a project of ours. And I was like, we don't want to move here anyway. So we got rid of that. And then, so it's always been a passion of mine. And then when we moved here, I knew so much about the house, this house that we live in. I saw it. I was like, that's our house. I knew so much about it. I knew all the research. I knew all the comps that had sold on this. Like I knew the market. And my real estate broker was like, do you need to work? And at the time I was like, no, I don't need to work. And she said, oh, okay. Because if you ever want to or do need to work, you might consider real estate. I said, really? Why? She goes, you really have a knack for this. You understand. And again, I had built my own houses with my builder, so I really understand a home.
The bricks and mortar.
Yeah, exactly. So she was like, this would be really, and you're a mom, like in this country, real estate's really run mostly by women anyway.
Yeah. I've seen Selling Sunset. I've got a handle on what real estate's like. I'm sure it's like that
Selling
now.
Sunset, yeah. No, it's so Selling Sunset's like the Disney version of real estate. It's very funny. But anyway, so but it's a great job for moms, especially single moms. And there's a lot of moms later in life who just had a career like in a big situation, big corporate. There's a lot of former attorneys who want to stay home with their kids more and have the flexibility. Mm-hmm. And that gives way to real estate. So yeah, no, I never thought about it as a true profession. I am fortunate because you can't do this business unless you love it. It's that hard. But I had to train in it. I went to, real estate school here and started from the ground up. Like there's no overnight success in real estate. I don't care how many people you know. I don't care how famous you are. Trusting someone with your money is a very different thing. Your friends just are not going to work with you because they like you. It's not happening. Yeah. They've got to trust you. So this has been a whole other curveball and learning. But I'm so proud because here's the funny thing about all that money that I had. I didn't like it. I had it for the wrong reasons. I didn't like it. I resented it. I was angry. So part of the spending was fuck this money.
I was going to say, yeah, of course. Yeah, spending, it's not real money, is it? Exactly. It's not real.
Nobody earned it. I mean, it's just odd other than our savings that we had, but it wasn't a huge savings. We were young. He was young in his career, so there wasn't really much going on. But I like this because even though there are financial challenges now, it's my money. These are my bills.
Oh, I agree. The satisfaction of when you earn your own money. And, sometimes I look at the spreadsheet of incoming and outgoing and I think, holy fuck, Rosie, exactly. Can we cut back on here? Yeah. But I was looked after very much by my parents, very loving. I was looked after them. And then boyfriends tended to look after me. My husband looked after me. My second husband did. And so at 44, I sort of found myself looking around and once again thinking, okay, here we go, right? Let's build something because we have, and I think this is so typical of this type of trauma is that you have those choices, and that those choices are you give up or you build, and I want to build.
Same. And so we can look at this as like something that's going to knock us out because it can very easily knock you out.
It does, just not permanently. I think that's what people need to know is the state that you may be in the early days, even the early years, it is not a permanent state. You won't live there forever.
Nope. You really want, and I know it feels like this will never end, but every day you put your feet on the ground and get out of your bed is a new day. You've moved through it. You've made it one more day. Each day could be better, could be worse, but it's still another day you've made it through, another day further away from the day it happened. And life is what you make of it. And if you're alive, can be open to opportunities to change your life, even in the smallest way. Start small. The most important thing is without health and wellness, I don't care how, like we were saying, I don't care how much money you have. You've got to be right with yourself first. And then everything can flow from that. You and your kids and your family have to be okay. And then everything else will open up in due time.
Because I say to people sometimes I don't really watch the news. My degree's in journalism. But it's because you, and particularly with the grief, you realise that the only people I have any control over, and that's limited on its own, is myself and my 3 children.
Yep.
Everything else I can care about, I can think about, but I can't control it. And I think sometimes you have to take a step right back from the world and stop trying to be everything to everybody. I'm really guilty of this myself,
Yes,
of course I am. But some days I'll go upstairs and I'll think I've had a really shit day, I've done nothing. And then you think, no, I took the bins out, I emptied the dishwasher, I did all those mundane
Yes.
chores that had to be done. They still got done, even when I felt like shit, right?
Yes. And that's it. Someday the accomplishment can be that you took the trash out. And
Yeah.
that's bravo to you, because that, in the state we are in, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
The fact that you washed your face, took a shower. We all know what these moments feel like. And so what I implore everyone listening to this to do is don't judge yourself. Be gentle, as gentle as you can. If there are people judging you, they don't need to be in your life right
Fuck
now.
'em.
Exactly. Fuck
Fuck
them.
'em.
Fuck off.
It's that classic, isn't it? Grant yourself the compassion you would your best friend.
Correct.
Would you say to your best friend if they were lying on the floor crying with devastation, oh, pull yourself together, you've cried about this enough? Of course you wouldn't. You'd lay on the floor with them and hold them.
Yes. You'd cry with them. You'd hold their hand and let them cry. And that's,
Yeah.
and no, listen, like we were saying, who wants to feel like this? It's miserable. But unfortunately, some of us have to.
Yeah.
And it's our job actually also to show our children that this too shall pass. And we have to model for our children. We're going to screw it up, but in the end, we're going to come out triumphantly, and we are going to pull through this and show them that it's not easy, but it can be done.
And there's a real power as well in showing your children that you fuck up and you get back up again, because generations before, parents weren't allowed to show any sort of weakness,
Never.
and they would never say sorry.
Never.
Whereas I'm not a perfect parent by any stretch, and I'll go completely off the handle because somebody has, I don't know, eaten the last packet of crisps. I don't know, like it could be something that tiny, and then the kind of the brave thing is to step down from your ivory tower of rage and say, I'm really sorry, that was a massive overreaction. There must be something else going on for me.
Yes.
Children will understand. That's the other thing. They are, if you use this language with them from a young age, they grow up with the vocabulary to use it. Yeah, to use as well.
Yes, and that's what my therapist back then taught me. Is like, okay, you messed up today. Have you apologized? And at first I'm like, no, I didn't apologize. Why should I apologize? Oh, we're going to teach you something new now. And it's like, I'm sorry that happened. It's not I'm sorry, but it's just I'm sorry. Don't add a but to it, because that negates the apology. So
yeah.
And what does it cost you? You screwed up.
You cried for a few seconds, and they will respect you more in the long run. We don't have to be, I can't think of the word. We don't have to be perfect. Let's just go with perfect. We don't have to be perfect.
Perfect sums it up.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, and they need you. They need you. They don't care if you're in a Rolls Royce. They don't care if you're in, Gucci. They need you.
They do. They
need you, raw and real.
Oh, Betsy, it's been so lovely to talk to you again. Do you have any kind of, you've just given some beautiful words of wisdom. Is there any sort of final message you want to leave the listeners with? I haven't prepped you for this, so don't feel that you've got to pull something out of thin air.
I'll just say the one thing I've always told myself is keep going. Life changed in an instant in the worst way. Equally so, it can change back again in the best way. Keep going. You're needed, you're wanted, and you will. We are a testament to this. You will get through it. You will. We're standing here to tell you that.
We are. Neither of us thought we would, let's be honest.
No. Are you kidding? No.
Let's see, if people want to find you on the old social medias, could you just give me your socials and I'll put them in the show notes as well?
Thank you so much. Yes. So my Instagram is at Betsy Ronel, Life, Real Estate, and More. And then my podcast is Heavens to Betsy.
Awesome. Again, just the most incredible conversation with you, Betsy. You are a powerhouse of a woman, and I absolutely love you. And I want to come to New York and...
Oh my God. The next time you're here, you're coming and we're going out.
As soon as I get the opportunity, I would love to do that. I would love to. If anybody listening has been affected by today's topic, please do let me know. If you want a little extra support, you can find me at widowed_AF on Instagram. I had to think about my own Instagram then. Isn't it funny how it just drops out of your head? Like, oh, what's my name? And of course you can message Betsy as well. But for now, you take care of yourselves out there and each other. And I'll be back with you next week with another story from Widowhood.